Hello everyone, we are from Group 11 and we will share about petrol volatility drives inflation in Malaysia during 2021 to 2026. Every day, millions of Malaysians feel the pinch at the petrol pumps and the grocery aisles. But how exactly are these two connected? To understand this, we first need to look at two critical economic concepts, which is inflation and petrol volatility. Inflation refers to general increases in price or demand and supply, which causes the purchasing power of a currency to decline. For consumers, this is seen when everyday goods and services become more expensive. Well, on the other side of the equation is fuel price volatility. This refers to the unpredictable shift in the cost of fuels like gasoline, diesel, and crude oil over time. It is an important concept in energy markets that significantly affects transportation costs, production expenses, and overall inflation. Between the years of 2021 to 2026, petrol price volatility emerged as an important driver of inflation in Malaysia. Why? Because fuel is the lifeblood of transportation. Petrol is needed for the lorries, buses, and delivery services. When petrol price increase, transportation costs rise, forcing business to spend more to deliver goods. This causes daily items such as foods, groceries, and household products to become more expensive for consumers. Higher petrol price also increase overall businesses' costs for shops, restaurants, and factories. To avoid loss, businesses usually increase the selling price of their products and services. This triggers what we so-called cost-push inflation, where rising production expenses are passed directly on to consumers. Driven by post-pandemic demand shifts and global supply disruption like Russia-Ukraine war, international oil market instability directly spill over, contributing heavily to inflation in Malaysia. Let's look at the data to see how it's unfolded. In 2021, as Malaysia entered the COVID-19 recovery phase, domestic petrol prices averaged RM2.03 per litre. Prices remains relatively stable during this period as local economic activities gradually resumed and oil demand increased globally. By the 2022-2023 and 2024 vaccinating trend emerged, globally the oil market was chaotic. In 2022, global crude oil prices increased significantly due to a high inflationary environment. In 2023, OPEC production cuts reduced globally oil supply and contributed to higher market volatility. Global oil market uncertainty and economic instability continued straight into 2024. Yet, though all of this, Malaysia's annual domestic petrol price change remained at 0%, holding steady at RM2.05 per litre. This stability was entirely due to continuous government fuel subsidy policies designed to control raw 95 prices and shield consumers from global shocks. However, the installations could not last forever. In 2025, the tide turned. The average petrol price rose to RM2.90 per litre, a sharp 24.88% annual increases. Petrol price started increasing gradually due to intense national discussions during subsidy rationalizations and changes in raw 95 fuels policies, contributing to greater petrol price volatility in Malaysia. The real shockwave struck in 2026. Petrol price skyrocketed to an average of RM3.16 per litre, marking massive 57.03 annual price jump. Severe global supply shocks and escalating geopolitical tensions increased international oil market volatility, ultimately driving petrol prices in Malaysia to historic hits and fueling the domestic inflation we face today. Now, let us move on to the relationship between petrol prices and inflation rates in Malaysia from 2021 to 2026. Petrol prices directly affected inflation because fuel is essential for transportation, logistics, and production. When petrol price rise, businesses usually face higher operating costs and pass them to the consumer through higher prices. In 2021, Malaysia recorded an inflation rate of 2.5% with an average petrol price of RM2.03 per litre. As the global economy reopened after COVID-19 lockdowns, oil demands increased while the supply chain remains disrupted. This created cost-push inflation in which rising production costs raised price. In 2022, inflation rose to 2.3%, while the petrol price remains relatively stable at RM2.05 per litre. The Russian invasion of Ukraine disrupted global oil supply, causing a supply-side shock and increasing transportation and food costs. In 2023 and 2024, inflation gradually declined to 2.5% and 1.8%, while petrol price stayed at RM2.05 per litre. This was supported by government subsidies, targeted subsidies reforms, and higher monetary policies by Bank of Malaysia, which helped Malaysia to stabilize their domestic prices. In 2025, petrol price increased to RM2.19 per litre, but inflation fell further to 1.4% due to targeted RON95 subsidies and weaker aggregate demand. Finally, in 2036, petrol price surged to RM3.60 per litre, while inflation increased slightly to 1.7% following the gradual removal of fuel subsidies and greater exposure to global oil market prices. Overall, petrol price volatility contributed to inflation in Malaysia, but government intervention through subsidies and economic policies helped reduce inflationary pressures over time. Next, let us focus on the impact of petrol volatility on Malaysian consumers, businesses, and the economy, as well as the government policy used to reduce these effects. First, petrol price increases directly affect the cost of living. When fuel price rise, transportation fares, delivery charges, and logistic costs also increase. As a result, consumers pay more for daily necessities such as foods, groceries, and household goods. In 2024, Malaysia inflation rate remains between 2 to 3.5% following diesel subsidy reforms, showing how fuel prices continue to influence overall living costs. Second, higher petrol prices increase business operating costs. Business that depends on transportation, especially logistic and delivery companies, face higher fuel expenses. These rising costs are often passed to consumers through higher production prices. To reduce this burden, the Malaysian government introduced the Subsidies Diesel Control System, or SKDS 2.0, to support eligible logistic companies and reduce operational costs. Third, petrol price volatility also affects consumer behavior. As fuel becomes more expensive, households reduce non-essential spending and become more careful with their budgets. Many consumers shift to public transportation, carpooling, or choose more fuel-efficient vehicles to save money. Lastly, petrol price reforms also have implications of fiscal policy. The government also has gradually shifted from blanket fuel subsidies to targeted subsidies. This policy helps reduce fiscal leakage, improve subsidy efficiency, and ensure government assistance reaches lower-income households more efficiently. Overall, petrol price volatility has significantly effects on the Malaysian economy by increasing living costs, raising business expenses, and changing consumer spending patterns. However, government intervention through targeted subsidies, cash assistance, and fuel management policies help reduce the negative impact on consumers and businesses. In conclusion, Malaysia's RON95 prices from 2021 to 2026 experienced major volatility due to global crude oil prices, geopolitical conflicts, and domestic policy changes. Although the government previously controlled fuel price through subsidies, the increasing fiscal burden made this approach unsustainable, leading to fuel price rationalizations. The data shows a clear relationship between fuel prices and consumer price index. When fuel prices increases, transportation, logistics, and production costs also rise, causing cost-push inflation across the economy. Moving forward, targeted assistance programs such as BURHANUDIN 95 and Malaysia's transitions toward cleaner energy may reduce the direct impact of petrol price fluctuations on inflation while still protecting lower-income households.